All right, here we are, episode 1 of Shane Talks. It's been in the progress for about a year and a half now to get a podcast going. I've been talking to my buddy Jason Maier about doing a podcast to talk about movies for a long time. And with this quarantine going on, I finally have taken the trigger. Decided the first episode I wanted to do was about 1999. It is my favorite year of movies being released ever. I have a lot of personal connections that we'll get into while we're talking about this. The first thing I want to say at the beginning of the first podcast is we are going to dedicate it to my buddy Dave tonight, who is supposed to be on this call with us, but at 3:49 p.m. today, he had the birth of his first son. So he's not able to make this call. But Dave, if you're listening, congratulations on your son, Michael, 6 pounds, 12 ounces, 18 inches long. Very happy for you, and I totally understand why you can't make the call. With me today on the first episode is my buddy Jason Maier, who I've been talking to for over a year about doing a movies podcast. We got my buddy Andy, who is a drinking buddy of mine, and we just learned that he also worked at General Cinemas a few years later. And then we got Jason Richardson, who in 1999 was my boss, and I am extremely happy to have him on this call. So the first thing I want to get into in 1999, when I looked back over the list, there are 35 movies that were released in 1999. All the 35 movies that I still to this day watch because I love them. So I'm going to go through those 35 movies. So just at the top of this, you can get an idea of how great of a year this was. Varsity Blues, She's All That, Office Space, Cruel Intentions, 10 Things I Hate About You, The Matrix, Go, The Mummy, The Phantom Menace, that was episode 1, The Spy Who Shagged Me, the second Austin Powers movie, Tarzan, Big Daddy, American Pie, The Blair Witch Project, The Iron Giant, Mystery Men, The Sixth Sense, Teaching Mrs. Tingle, In Too Deep, Stir of Echoes, American Beauty, Blue Streak, Mumford, Drive Me Crazy, Mystery Alaska, Three Kings, Fight Club, The Story of Us, Dogma, Toy Story 2, The Green Mile, Girl Interrupted, Man on the Moon, and Galaxy Quest. All 35 of those movies were released in 1999, and I think that is a heck of a resume for 1 year. Anybody got comments? What are some of the movies you guys like on that list that you still watch to this day?
American Beauty is still one of my most hated movies of all time, easily.
Really?
21 years later, I still can't stand that movie because every single one of those characters in that movie suck. None of them are worth anything. They all are pieces of crap. Oh man, that movie, I watched it and I was hoping, I don't know if I was hoping for everybody else's, like, everybody else loved that movie so much, and I went in and I was like, oh, it's got to be good. And then I watched it and I was like, holy crap, this is a piece of poo.
No. And here's my argument against that, because, I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, but, everyone's always bitching and complaining about looking for something authentic, and American Beauty was authentic.
I agree.
It was beautiful. It was raw. It was honest. It was a great story, good dialogue, great writing, and a little fucked up. And we're all a little fucked up.
I agree with that statement.
To the level of Kevin Spacey?
Yeah, Kevin Spacey, who won Best Actor that year. He won the Oscar for Best Actor for that role. The movie won Best Picture. The movie won Best Picture. And the movie won Best Screenplay.
Okay, but to that end, I'm going to skip a year here and take it back to something we talked about a couple days ago. Gladiator. Gladiator.
No.
You see, your reaction to Gladiator is Jason's reaction to American Beauty. People love it. People love it. You think it's a big steaming pile.
Yep, you're not wrong. I mean,
Shane, you hated Gladiator?
I hate Gladiator.
Wait a minute. What do you have against Gladiator?
Pandora's box is officially opened.
No, because Gladiator was released in 2000. Tonight we're talking about movies in 1999.
But fair enough. But I'm just making a corollary. That's all it is. Nothing more, nothing less.
And you are not wrong. I definitely agree with your statement. And Jason's allowed to have his opinion. I agree with with Jason Richardson's
You're allowed.
opinion,
You're allowed to have your opinion about Gladiator, Shane.
Sure.
You're just wrong.
But we still got to give you a shit about it. So
I also am one of the people that looks at American Beauty as I am happy to see a movie that's not happy-go-lucky, everything turns out okay in the end. Like, this is what real life is like, and people make mistakes in real life, and people do really bad things in real life, and they have consequences they have to live with. And it also has a lot to do with perspectives, like Chris Cooper's father having
You mean
what
Chris Cooper?
his son is doing, and compared to what his son is actually doing, it's completely different. So you get to see how people make judgments without having all the facts and details, like in multiple storylines of that movie.
And I think that.
I think
Go ahead,
that like
Gilbert.
Annette Bening's character was like putting on the facade. People who put on the that kind of try to portray that perfection and greatness, and deep down to the core, we all just want to let our hair down and just loosen up. And you kind of see both sides of people who try to be perfect, and then people who are just perfection is bullshit.
Sure.
And that's where Kevin Spacey's character just veered off, and he was just tired of that, white picket fence family facade bullshit, and a happy life, that they were kind of portraying originally, So anyway,
Just stop giving a fuck.
And on a side note, not every single Hollywood movie that does that whole, like, we're going to flip it and make it's not always a happy ending, is that that's not always something that I'm against even.
Right.
Like, I loved the latest version of A Star Is Born. I mean, I thought, and no matter how depressing and sad it ends, like, that movie was almost sheer perfection for me as far as the writing and the directing on it and the acting. Like, and whoever, like, I mean, I get you got Lady Gaga to play Lady Gaga essentially, but like, she was fantastic in that movie. And I would have,
because she stripped it down, and it wasn't Lady Gaga. It was a perfect deconstruction.
It was just bare bones. This is it. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, tough titties.
For sure. So
going back to 99. Sorry.
Yes.
Flipping back to that, Shane, I think probably American Pie is really high on my list of favorites of that year.
For sure.
Just for how silly of the movie is, and obviously it takes what we were going through essentially at that time, like, to a different level.
100%.
It was way above the top that we would ever imagine, but
it was our coming of age.
Andy, as a 14-year-old watching American Pie, what did you like? Because we were obviously a little past high school. As a 14-year-old,
I think we were all legally adults by then.
Yeah, no.
I was 19 in 99.
I was just happy
18.
to see that I wasn't the only one.
Okay, you could relate to the characters still?
Are you still Stifler?
Oh, no, I was Jim. I was definitely Jim.
Wait, hold on.
About American Pie, like, let's look at the teen films that were released in 99 alone. We got Varsity Blues, She's All That, Simply Irresistible, Blast from the Past, October Sky, 200 Cigarettes, Cruel Intentions, Wing Commander, 10 Things I Hate About You, Go, Election, Idle Hands, American Pie, Drop Dead Gorgeous, Dick, Detroit Rock City, Teaching Mrs. Tingle, Outside Providence, Drive Me Crazy, and Girl Interrupted were all movies that had teen cast.
Shane, you
forgot one? I've heard of like 3 of those movies, Shane. I'm not gonna lie.
I was gonna say,
that's depressing.
Bring up Simply Irresistible, which I love Sarah Michelle Gellar, but god awful movie.
It is a god awful movie, but it had a teen
It's so
cast.
bad I was told not to watch it, and I took people's word for it.
It's terrible. It has a talking crab in it. Like, it's it's terrible. But Sarah,
Well, so did The Little Mermaid. What's your point?
Crab people.
Something I want to say about I want to say something about American Pie.
Yeah, go back to American Pie.
Working in a movie theater during that time when that movie was out, just theater people just loved that movie.
Yep.
The unique thing about American Pie was that was like that was kind of like the 90s version of Porky's.
Yeah, 100%.
Or like the Spring Break movies. And so it kind of tapped back into that kind of like how Scream did like for the Halloween movies.
Yes, 100%.
And so that was kind of a nice refreshing at that time when that was released. You didn't really have like those kind of teen sex romp, coming of age comedies.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a throwback to like the Porky's movies and the Spring Break movies from the 80s and such. And it was just fun, and it was done well, and everyone enjoyed it. And just that time period when that came out, that was just a really good period, and everybody was talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
We need that now. Like, like we need one of those for this generation.
We need that relatability
genre, like it was.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't have American Pie, you didn't have Van Wilder or Road Trip, Euro Trip, but there was a character for everybody in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I mean, there was something for everyone, and that was kind of the at the time unnoticed beauty of it. You could identify with one person or two people, and you're like, that's my movie.
Yep.
And for me, still, I think Eugene Levy was the cherry on top of the cake.
Oh, yeah, he was all of our dads. Like,
yeah.
Watching him and his reactions and his dialogue and how he would his tone and how he would react to Jim, his son,
and how he took an awkward conversation or an awkward situation and just made it even more awkward, but still acceptable at the same time. Like,
or the beauty of him just not even having to say something, just giving Jason Biggs a look and just going,
like, look.
Yeah.
Just raising an eyebrow or just.
As a grown up now, I look back and be like, holy crap, my dad knew everything I did. We were getting away with it. We were not.
We weren't getting away with shit.
So you mentioned teen movies, and I can't believe no one's mentioned Never Been Kissed. And
oh my God, how did I miss that? You're right.
I forgot about that.
That is a fantastic 1999 movie that I will probably throw in every few months just because, again, that was such a great year. And, there were good comedies that came out. And I love Drew Barrymore movies. There's just something sweet and wholesome about Drew Barrymore comedies. And I just wanted to kind of throw that one out there because I really like it.
100%. I agree with you. So last year, when it was the 20th anniversary of 1999, I went through and on the 20th anniversary of every movie that was released, I watched the movie last year. Never Been Kissed was one that I honestly hadn't seen since the theaters, and I didn't know how it was going to hold up 20 years later, and I really still enjoyed it.
Josie Grossi.
Like, Michael Vartan was very good in that movie. David Arquette was very good in that movie. Like, it held up a lot better than I expected, and it was a lot of fun.
And she's so weird, man, because, like, there are so many times where I've watched Drew Barrymore in a movie, and I'm like, God, she is not attractive, and I find her annoying. And then she can flip it, and it's just like 50 First Dates, Never Been Kissed. I actually really enjoy the movie's not that great, but her character in Charlie's Angels is, like, again, adorable and relatable, and you're like, I don't know what it is. She's either, like, over here and, like, I wouldn't want to ever talk to that girl, or, like, way over here and it's like she's so hot and she's not hot, but she's, like, attractive and girl next door-ish, and it works so well for her. It's so weird to me that she can be so different on the spectrum.
For sure. So let's real quick. Holidays are always big releases these days for movies. Let's look at the holidays from 1999 and see what they actually released. Memorial Day, which was May 31st that year, they released movies on May 28th. That was Notting Hill and The 13th Floor. Not super big draw movies. Independence Day that year.
Yes, they were.
What's that?
Notting Hill was huge.
Notting Hill was, but like 13th Floor, you thought was
No.
a good
13th Floor sucked.
All
But
right.
Notting Hill was huge.
Independence Day,
Notting Hill
wasn't
was
that like
Notting Hill
93,
didn't
94?
translate. Yeah, Notting Hill didn't translate here, but it was big. I mean, obviously
For sure.
UK. I mean, Europe. Big. It wasn't our market, but it was still a big movie nonetheless.
Yeah.
So Independence Day, July 4th was a Sunday. The one movie that was released on July 2nd was Summer of Sam, the Spike Lee
movie.
film, which is
Dark.
a good movie.
Yeah.
Very dark.
And it's probably because 1 week earlier they released Wild Wild West
Oh.
in South Park.
I was going to say,
Ah,
Independence
the
Day
un-
was 1996, man.
Yes.
No, he's talking about July 4th weekend.
July 4th, Independence Day of the holiday. Sorry.
Gotcha.
Not
Sorry.
the movie. Yes. 1996, 100%.
Shane's got that wrong.
No.
I was thinking about that too, Jason.
I
No,
apologize.
it's
I
Wait a
had
minute.
instead of
South
4th
Park.
of July, I wrote down Independence Day on my notes.
But that's a prime example, Shane, of I don't think they will ever release a movie like that again at that time period.
Really?
In
Okay.
Summer Sam should have been like a fall release.
Agreed. 100%. Yep.
That's
Could have been
not
a Halloween
that's not
release.
a summer movie, and they did.
It's a great movie, but it was
they
not a
didn't do that
summer
movie
movie.
justice by releasing it in the middle of the summer like that.
Yep.
Well, I mean, because the marketing people thought a hot summer in New York City means you have to
No,
release that
true.
movie in the summer. It doesn't make any sense, but I would agree with
Labor
you.
Day of
Shouldn't.
1999 was September 6th. So on September 1st, they released Chill Factor and Outside Providence.
Wow.
Gosh, I haven't even thought of that movie in a while.
Yeah.
Chill Factor or Outside Providence?
Outside Providence.
The like stoner movie of that year.
God,
Thanksgiving of that year, obviously they opened on Wednesday. We got 5 movies, 2 of which I think are actually worth something. We got End of Days and Toy Story 2. Decent movies for a Thanksgiving release. But then we also got Flawless,
Sweeney Todd?
Mansfield Park, and Tumbleweeds. Jason, I think Sweeney Todd was 2001.
Sorry, not Sweeney Todd. What was the? Oh God, we watched a double feature of Toy Story 2 and something. What was the?
We watched Toy Story 2 and Sleepy Hollow.
That's what I was thinking of. Sorry, Sleepy
Yes.
Hollow.
But I can't remember where was Sleepy Hollow's release date. Did I miss that for a
That was the November Thanksgiving-ish.
Was
Cool,
it?
yeah,
I may have
Matt,
just missed it when I was writing these notes down. End of Days, Toy Story, Flawless, Mansfield Park, and Tumbleweed.
Oh, it was released November 19th, 1999.
Yeah, we apparently got to watch Toy Story a week early. We must have had a screening or something of it.
Yeah.
The Christmas movies. So here we go. Here's the Christmas movies of 1999. On Tuesday, Christmas was on a Saturday, so we had releases all week. On Tuesday, we had Girl Interrupted. On Wednesday, we had Any Given Sunday and Man on the Moon.
Ugh.
On Saturday, on Christmas Day, we had Galaxy Quest, Magnolia, and The Talented Mr. Ripley. So of all the
those are
holidays
solid.
in 99, Christmas is the only one that actually had decent movies released that year.
Interesting, really.
Because I think of now, like every holiday, they try to release something big. But,
Oh yeah.
Right.
I don't know. That just sounded, when you were kind of highlighting those, that just sounded so like a really serious Christmas. You know what I mean? Like,
No, I just
Galaxy Quest is quite the serious movie.
no, like
no,
Yeah.
I mean, Talented Mr. Ripley is serious.
I'm just
Girl
kidding.
Interrupted is serious.
Yo,
Any Given Sunday is serious.
sure,
Love that movie, by the
Magnolia
way.
is serious.
it's super
You know,
drama, and then we got 2 comedies.
But I mean, Man on the Moon is honestly, I mean, if you're not a fan of Andy Kaufman, I mean, it's not your bag.
It's a
not your
very
bag.
niche movie. You're
It
right.
is
Oh.
a very niche movie.
Yeah.
It really is. But I mean, if you are an Andy Kaufman fan like me,
Sure. Oh yeah.
Jim Carrey did Andy Kaufman almost as well as Andy Kaufman did Andy Kaufman.
I absolutely love Man on the Moon, and there is a documentary on Hulu, on Netflix called Jim and Andy, and it is absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
So those were our holiday movies that we had that year.
Man.
There was a few in your 35. I was kind of because I wrote down some of mine from looking at the list and
Sure.
whatnot. One I'll say I agree with you on is I really like Dick a lot. It was not huge,
Yep.
but it was so much fun.
I think
Dick was not huge.
And I'm a 5.
That's one of those movies that like it's such childish humor trying to do
Didn't take itself seriously
in a serious situation. It was a serious situation that had very childish humor, not taking itself serious. Like, I don't know. It's a weird movie, and I understand why a lot of people don't like it. But I felt like the two girls, Michelle Williams and it was Kirsten Dunst, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like they did really well together.
Oh yeah. Totally.
Most of the other movie didn't really matter. Just like their character, like Romeo and Michelle. Like the movie Romeo and Michelle, like everything besides Romeo and Michelle doesn't really matter. I feel like Dick is very similar in that way.
Yeah. But that was one I liked. I liked the Thomas Crown Affair. I liked in a weird way. I like this drama called Random Hearts with Harrison Ford and Kristen Scott Thomas.
That was a wannabe Alfred Hitchcock movie, wasn't it?
It was kind of like it was a obscure story, but it was about a man and a woman who their spouses were having an affair. And so Harrison Ford,
that's not the movie I'm thinking of.
Okay. Yeah. So it's pretty good. It wasn't big at all, but I enjoyed it a lot. I really liked Double Jeopardy in a really weird kind of Ashley Judd way.
Here's the really weird thing about Double Jeopardy that I will always say. I enjoy Double Jeopardy. I think it's a great movie. For some weird reason, they don't give you Tommy Lee Jones's character for the majority of the movie.
Yeah.
I wish at the very end of the movie, they were just like, hey, thanks for your help on this, Sam Gerard, and just made it a Fugitive prequel.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like his character is very much Sam Gerard, and I don't mind that. I enjoyed that. But I remember watching the movie, and I'm like, man, they're never telling me this character's name. Like, I don't know his character's name. Like, what if at the end of this, it's Sam Gerard? That'd be so cool, and it wasn't. But, like, Double Jeopardy was a good movie. Besides that, that was just always like my one little thing I wanted from Double Jeopardy was to find out it was a prequel to The Fugitive.
The other thing that was neat about it too, Double Jeopardy was one of those movies, again, working at the theater at that time, where it was just this out of nowhere huge hit.
Sure.
Like, just kind of came out of nowhere and everybody just embraced it. It was almost like the movies were shut down for months and they released this movie called Double Jeopardy and everybody just went to go see it. To go see it.
You want to talk about sleeper hits like that, we can address the fact that The Sixth Sense came out in August.
Yep.
And in December, we were still running 4 shows a day of it.
Yeah, The Sixth Sense was weird because I remember we did an employee screening of it, and it was about a week or so before the film was going to come out because we were doing a screening. And we didn't have much expectation of this movie, and we're in the midst of watching this movie, the few of us in that theater, and we were like, this is special.
Yes.
Like, this is good. Like, still didn't know it was going to be huge like it was, but people will come and see this movie, but didn't realize it would get to where it got to.
For sure.
And that was kind of neat to kind of have that advanced notice feeling of,
100% agree. If you want to bring situations like that up, we can talk about the fact that Jason Maier and Jason Richardson and I were all at a screening of the Blair Witch Project 2 months before it came out. It was a July release, and the 3 of us went to a press screening in May. 2 months before there was any hype around the movie, we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into, and that was one of the best movie-going experiences. I was terrified
Scared the
watching
shit
that movie.
out of me. Yes.
I was terrified of that movie. And then it got such a negative backlash because everybody was like, oh, this is fake. This sucks. But when we saw it 2 months earlier, we had no idea that was fake.
Right.
Andy, how did you feel about Blair Witch at 14?
See, Blair Witch scared the crap out of me, but I'm not going to lie to you. I went back and watched it not too long ago, and I thought it was the dumbest movie I'd ever seen.
Really? You didn't think it held up?
No. I was like, how could I have been scared about this? Like, I think at the time I got caught up in the hype. Like
Okay.
And it was new, the way they filmed it with,
Different.
basically
Yep.
them holding the camera and made you feel like you were in the woods. But like I said, I watched it again not too long ago, and I was like, yeah, no.
Do you think
Don't
knowing
understand.
now that it was all fake had any effect on that? Like when you were 14, you probably didn't know that it was fake.
And
you don't think that
even
affected
if I did, I mean, most of the movies we watch are fake. So what if it was fake?
All right, I got you.
So a horror or a thriller is a horror or a thriller. It didn't bother me that it could have been fake.
Okay. Wardo, do you have any feelings on the Blair Witch?
I mean, at the time it was revolutionary, but now it's become a trope.
Okay. The Steadicam thing. The Steadicam thing is definitely annoying.
It's one of those things that played itself out very quickly due to overindulgence by everybody trying to remake it.
Yeah,
very well said. Very well said.
Yep. Jaber, do you have any other 99 movies that you were thinking of?
You know what? This is an interesting one, and I felt a little embarrassed by this because this is on a lot of people's top sports movies, but the movie For Love of the Game. I am a huge Kevin Costner fan. I like when he does a sports movie.
Oh, yeah.
I like this movie a lot, but I forget about it. Like, I forget about the premise. I forget about what happens.
You forget about it because it's really boring.
It
is 2 hours of boredom, man.
No,
that is my least favorite Kevin Costner baseball movie.
I find
Field
that
of Dreams, Bull Durham, this.
Whenever I watch that movie,
you forgot Major League.
I just get sucked in. But then, like 2 years later, if someone said, "What's the premise of that movie?" or what, I'm like, I don't know, but I always end up liking it. That's just one of those movies where I forget about it, what happens, and then I watch it. I'm like, oh, but I like the movie. Does that make sense?
Do you remember who directed it?
Do you remember who directed it?
The Sam Raimi did.
Yes, good call. Yep.
Yeah.
It should have been better, but it was boring. That's why you forget about it.
Anybody else agree or disagree?
I don't feel like it was boring. I feel like it's forgettable.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the whole story is very by the numbers for the most part. There are things that they do with the camera work and stuff that are very cool and very I always think of like the clear the mechanism part where he's talking about that and he's like trying to just like focus on throwing the ball and he says to himself clear the mechanism and like everything like does this weird fade away.
And that's
like,
a very cool shot.
Yep. It's awesome. But I also have a thing for Jenna Malone. And like, even though I mean, I was 19 when that came out and she was probably 14 or 15. I don't know. But yeah, like I've always thought she was a very attractive female. And so like that kicks that movie up a notch for me.
Sure.
John C. Reilly as the catcher on the team. Like it's not a movie I ever think about putting on, but if I come across it while it's on TV, I'll stop whatever I'm doing and I'll watch that.
Okay,
that's fair.
So
Andy, give me a 1999 movie that you're thinking about.
So glad you called on me because I've been waiting for you to bring up probably my favorite movie of all time.
Let's do it.
Came out in 1999. The Boondock Saints, bub.
The Boondock Saints.
Yes.
Yes.
That's in top 5 for me all time. That's one of those movies.
Such a good movie. And I didn't see it in 1999. It was probably I was at IU when I saw it, and a girlfriend of mine at the time was like, "Hey, we're watching this movie," and I was like, "I have to watch that again." Like, leave my dorm room and let me be by myself because I need to watch this again.
One of those things like Fight Club.
Like, what is this movie? Let me look this up here.
No. I've watched Boondock Saints. I just didn't know when it came out. It came out in 99 across the pond, and then here it didn't come out until January of 2000. No. And I'm fine with you calling it a 99 movie because when you look it up, it says 1999.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things where I was like, I don't remember it coming out. And I remember it being a really small release.
When it was an extremely small release.
Extremely small.
Who's in it?
Sean Patrick Flannery.
Sean Patrick Flannery.
Norman Reedus.
Norman
William
Reedus.
Dafoe.
Is
Billy
Willem
Connolly.
Dafoe? Yeah.
Willem Dafoe, and one of my all-time favorite actors,
Billy Connolly.
Billy Connolly, who did
Mhm.
the second half of Head of the Class.
So is it a comedy or dramedy or
No, it's a hardcore. You've never heard of the Boondock Saints?
no?
It is like one of the
Jason's got
biggest
homework.
Oh
character
my God.
ever.
Yeah, you have homework before
Have y'all
next
ever heard of
show.
The Wood?
Like you should have heard of this movie. Like, it's about two Irish brothers who go around killing a bunch of people in the name of God.
Yeah,
Me and
like,
Galligan
What I
over
want to
here.
be when I grow up.
I was
It's kind
gonna
of
say,
like Quentin
you
Tarantino.
got the two
as-
Irish guys over here smiling our faces
I know,
off.
right?
We're both going, yeah.
That's interesting. I'll have to look that up. Well, that's kind of refreshing just to hear something like I haven't heard of before.
Like,
you know?
I cannot.
Rocco!
Like, there was a sequel to it, like the Boondock Saints 2. There's also a
It was terrible.
documentary. There's also a documentary called Overnight about Troy Duffy, who was the director of that movie.
Mhm.
Because absolutely everyone hates this guy. Everybody who has ever worked with him or had any dealings with him hates him. He was a bouncer in LA who happened to write a script that the right person saw at the right moment, and they decided to make this movie, and this movie became huge, and it went to his cocaine-fueled head, and his raging douchebag already was expounded upon.
They caught lightning in a bottle.
Interesting.
Hey, Jaybird,
Who
I sent you
directed
a
Troy
text
Duffy.
message of a picture that
Oh
has
yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now.
yeah, it lets you know that it's on. If you have Amazon Prime, you can
I do.
you can stream
Yeah,
it
it's
now.
been on Amazon Prime for like the past 10 years.
I
Yeah.
just
And Netflix.
got that at Christmas.
And
I was late.
There is hold on, Wardo, give me your 1999 movie. What is your 1999 movie when we started talking about this?
Well, we already said American Pie.
Sure.
That's like you said, it's the Porky's of our generation.
Definitely.
Fight Club. Fight Club.
Yeah, Fight
I
Club.
mean,
I'm glad somebody
Fight
finally
Club.
brought that up.
Like,
I mean,
Fight Club is probably one of the best films ever written and made. It's probably in my top 10 of all time. Like, I find that movie to be perfect. I can watch that movie 3 times in one day and still enjoy it. Like, there's literally so much fun, good stuff in that movie that, like, I don't ever get tired of watching it.
It's crazy to think of the fact that Brad Pitt didn't actually hit a box office smash until Ocean's 11. Like, everything he had been in before then had never, like, even Fight Club, it didn't make hardly anything at the box office.
Because he
It
was
wasn't
a good actor.
Rave reviews.
Not even
Yeah, like,
A River Runs Through It?
A River Runs Through It. No, it like got,
No?
it
But no,
critically
that was
acclaimed.
exactly. He got critical acclaim, but didn't get mainstream.
Okay,
Never had a
all right.
box office smash until Ocean's 11, and then it's one of those moments where I was like, I was on Box Office Mojo when they actually had a website that was worth something, and was looking up some stuff one time, and I was like, what's the biggest movie you ever made? And it was like all the Oceans movies and World War Z were at the top, and then like everything else was way down
Way
that
at the
list.
bottom.
Even Seven's down on that
Really?
list.
Really?
Yeah, like it's like didn't make
Interview
much
with a
money, but everybody
Vampire?
loved it. Huh?
Interview with a
yeah.
Vampire?
Like I want us,
That's
to,
kinda
but see,
shocking.
box office smash back then is a whole lot different than
That's
box
true.
office
Oh,
smash
that's true.
now. So
That's
I
I
was
mean,
probably
well,
looking at
adjusted
the
for
money
inflation, then.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, you got Sleepers. Sleepers had a great cast. Like, I thought that would make money.
It didn't make anything.
When did
I remember
Snatch
seeing
come
that
out? Because
opening
that was
weekend-
Brad Pitt's best.
Opening
That
weekend
was
at
97.
and it was empty. Like, I mean, like there was like 20, 30 people in each showing or something. But
It was so serious.
it was-
Wardo, what
yeah.
did you like about Fight Club?
Just honestly, all in all, I'd probably have to say that it shows that everybody has a Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, just no matter how you slice it, everybody has the darkness and the light. I mean, not to put a Star Wars type spin on it, but just the lengths you'll go to prove yourself or to fit in, whether it's in one group or another, and then finally one side overrules the other and just says, F it, this is who
Sure.
I am. I mean, he comes in, Edward Norton shows up as this, shirt and tie, 9 to 5 insurance guy. And then the dark side emerges at night, where he comes out and he's this Brad Pitt badass who creates this international syndicate, for lack of a better term. And he doesn't know how to balance the duality of it. It's almost like an anti-Batman, where Bruce Wayne knew how to handle being a billionaire playboy during the day, but being a superhero at night. He couldn't come to grips with either one of them, and it ended up ultimately consuming him.
Definitely see that. So you got a movie like Fight Club that we question reality when you find out the twist at the end of that. In 1999, we also had The Sixth Sense that we already talked about, how you question reality and what you just watched at the end of The Sixth Sense, where you go back. Then we also had a movie like The Matrix that makes you question reality, where I wanted to get to addressing The Matrix, which in my opinion is probably one of the best science fiction films that has ever been put on screen. I wish they never made the sequels to it, because I feel like they ruined the original.
I think that was a documentary, Shane.
But literally, I think The Matrix is one of the best science fiction films that has ever been put on screen, from storyline to reality to the video game aspect of it, to also just how groundbreaking the camera work was, before CGI became what CGI is now. Knowing that they did all of those effects practically with 100 cameras around Keanu Reeves at one time, it's so fantastic. It holds up so much better than any CGI, in my opinion.
I had brought up with you the other day when we were doing our cinema meeting thing. The nice thing about The Matrix was it came out about 4 to 6 weeks before The Phantom Menace was coming out. And so with the Star Wars, ramping up, everyone was geeked because Star Wars was coming back onto the big screen. And so generally April, you've got really bad movie product that are released before the stuff in May. The summer stuff comes out in May.
Sure.
So here we have this delay until Star Wars comes out. Everybody's anticipating it. And then up pops this movie called The Matrix, a month before Star Wars, that just basically filled that void until the Star Wars came out. And
it did more than fill the void.
What's that?
It did more than fill the void.
Oh, sure. It was just a nice, wonderful surprise. It turned into a huge box office hit. And I just remember walking out of it what the fuck did I just watch? I liked it, but I need to see that again, because I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. And when it, what's the scene where they dodge the bullet, where they lean back?
Bullet time,
Yeah. I mean, that was a whole new world to everyone, everyone was blown away by that. And so that was, that was a nice time to be at the movie theater, working in the theater, and you see that shit before other people do, and you think, oh my God, this is something special here.
Yep. Jason?
I remember somebody that you guys worked with, because I wasn't working at Clearwater at the time, but you guys were working with him at the time when The Matrix came out. He completely crapped all over The Matrix, because he was like, please, bullet time's been done for years in Asian cinema and all this other stuff. And it was just here we are completely blown away. And we're like, oh wow, that was so amazing and different and fresh. And it was Devin. Devin was like, oh, bullet
Devin, really?
Ever. He was acting, because he watched Old Boy and not Old Boy, but oh God, what were the ones with John Woo? There was a couple he did, and some other things that were over on that side of the world that did some of those apparently, and he acted like it was old tricks and stuff, and that he had seen it so much beforehand. And it was one of those moments where all of us are sitting there this is the first time it's been done in America. This is the first time it's going to be done on our side of the pond. This was amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
Matrix was definitely something we were not expecting.
Agreed.
Which is so weird, because here we are talking about 1999, and you have The Matrix, which was unexpected. The Sixth Sense, which completely flipped us.
Yep.
You have American Pie, which reinvigorated that entire
That teen genre. Yep.
Like it's just one of those things where like now I'm like, maybe this year is better than I think it is.
Dude, not only that, hold on. Let's get to this now. 99 was also the very end of hand-drawn animation, and we got Tarzan and the Iron Giant in the same year.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and both of those, Tarzan's I always break up Disney into New Disney and Old Disney. Everything before everything before Little Mermaid's Old Disney. Anything past that's New Disney. And Tarzan is still. My kids asked me not even a week ago what my favorite Disney movie was, and I told them what I break it up into. Sure. And I said, "Hey, you got to go new or old," and they were like, "Okay, new." And I was like, "Tarzan, like it's still my favorite."
See, that's awkward because I put Tarzan in Old Disney. For me, New Disney starts with Treasure Planet when it was 100% CGI from that point on.
Treasure Planet wasn't, though. Treasure Planet, everybody was hand-drawn and all the backgrounds were CGI. So
Toy Story for me it was New Disney.
Well, and Toy Story was Pixar, though, and Toy Story was also this year. But Toy Story was Pixar, which was owned by Disney, but Disney wasn't handling the animation on it. So it still falls in that animated category for this year, but like hand-drawn, we still got two really great hand-drawn movies because Iron Giant is still one of my favorite animated films of all time. The story of that, literally, like the first time Caitlin and Lily had never seen it, and the first time I ever showed it to them a couple of years ago, like they both looked at me at the end and they were like, "Why'd you show us a movie that made us cry?" And I'm like, "Because that's how good this movie is."
The movie's fantastic.
It's that
animation does that.
But does it? I don't remember crying at very many animated movies. Maybe Lilo and Stitch.
Dude, up, first 10, 15 minutes of that, I was a blubbering mess, man. That movie is that, and you know, I'm way more of a softie than Shane is, but like, dude, there's so many times where I go to theaters with my kids now, and it's like, Coco got me.
The end of Coco got me.
Dude, the ending of Coco, like I felt bad because I was crying. I turned and looked at both of my older boys, and they were like messy crying, like ugly crying, and I felt like a horrible parent because here I am taking them to watch this movie that's making them break down like this, and I was like, oh God, I hope they can forgive me for taking them to such a movie that might emotionally scar them for life.
Sure.
I've got that on Blu-ray. I need to watch it.
I thought Coco was very underrated.
Yeah,
it
it's a very powerful movie.
Didn't get the props that it needed.
Watching Coco, when I was watching it, I was just like, I mean, this movie's okay. Like, I see the plot. I see what's going on. I know this. He's going to end up being his dad. Oh, no, he's the guy that screwed over his dad. I get it. And why does everybody cry at this movie? And then, like, that bridge scene at the end, I was just like, oh, man, I see why people cry at this movie now.
Dude,
it took me till the end, but it got me in the end.
And Onward got me a little bit. I'll admit to that one, too, because, like, that one, the ending's pretty nice.
I really enjoyed how they did the ending of Onward, how it was like we weren't a part of it. We were with the main character that we'd been with for the whole movie. And then when the brother situation happened and we saw it through like the looking glass far away like the brother did, like I was like, okay, I really can get behind this.
Yeah. That's a movie that, like, if this pandemic hadn't happened, I think that movie would have done a whole lot better, because on opening weekend people were already starting to worry about this. Sure. So like they shied away from it completely. So I mean, it really sucks, but I'm glad that I got to see it, because that was another thing. I'm glad that Disney did what they did in releasing it early on Disney Plus, because I didn't get to see it beforehand because I was like, oh, I'll take my kids, be a family thing, and then that didn't happen. So
sure. Wardo, did any of those animated movies from '99 resonate with you?
For me, Iron Giant was always kind of that just perfect animated movie, and just for all the right reasons. And until Into the Spider-Verse came out, that was always kind of my gold standard.
Well, and that if that's what replaced it, that's not a bad choice for replacing it. Andy?
Yeah, I was going to bring up South Park. If
Okay.
we don't have South Park fans, I'm not going to talk about it. But if we do, then
Oh, that's perfectly fine. Go ahead.
okay.
I'm not a big South Park fan, but I did watch the movie, so you can address.
Oh, that movie is phenomenal.
All right. So let me start off by saying that I was definitely a Mr. Rogers kid. Mr. Rogers made sense of the universe around us. When we got too old for Mr. Rogers, we turned to South Park.
Okay.
And South Park became the rhyme and reason to make sense of our world. And so when this movie came out, I was really excited about it. I had already been a big South Park fan, and 1999 was also, and I'm ashamed to admit this now, but was kind of the start of my foray into musical theater. And so I was, I thought it took properties from like the popular Broadway shows and oh geez, and just threw it all together and wonderfully made fun of it all. At the same time being an amazing movie. It's one of those that, like, after I responded to your Facebook group, I was like, you know what? It's probably been 15 years since I've seen that movie.
Okay.
Bought it on iTunes, watched it, and I was doing backflips off my couch just to the songs. Like, I was so fun. It's so great. It's a fun movie.
Were you singing Blame Canada?
I was just saying,
Yeah.
I need you to bring me up, I need you to bring me up to speed because I've only ever seen the movie once, and it was when I watched it in the theater.
Okay.
I remember Blame Canada, but I don't really remember the whole plot of what. Like, I remember the devil and sex shit at the end.
Yeah, a lot of Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, but I don't really remember what the plot of South Park was.
Who's my cream puff?
I don't think you're alone, Shane. It went in so many different directions.
Okay.
But I think if you had to put a plot on it, it was Canada being Canada and trying to take over the world with Satan.
Okay.
And Saddam Hussein. And once again, we have our four South Park characters being right in the middle of it all.
Gotcha.
And you have James Hetfield singing a wonderful song while Kenny is flying down to the pits of hell.
I forget. I do remember the James Hetfield part now. Looking back on 99 and all of the top films from that year, we've touched on most of them. There's a couple we haven't. And one of them is a movie that Andy specifically brought up the other night when I put up my post looking for people to talk about this. Probably one of my favorite action-adventure movies. It still holds up today. It's still very funny and very fun and is a great Indiana Jones-like adventure. And that's The Mummy.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that you enjoy that movie.
Which
One of my
movie?
favorites.
The Mummy.
Oh, God.
So Indiana Jones was my favorite movie. Probably to this day, Raiders of the Lost Ark is top 5 for me.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it has gone down the list. I remember watching Raiders of the Lost Ark with my grandpa when I was probably 8 years old, maybe, on the old school VHS, and thought like, oh, that's who I want to be. And I've always been drawn to those types of movies, and it's not just like The Mummy was one of my favorite of that action adventure Indiana Jones-esque genres. But just me personally, I'm attracted to that kind of movie in general. But yeah, The Mummy, again, own it, watched it the other day, and like it holds up. I don't know. Just it's a great movie. Fantastic movie.
I wanted to like that movie. I so wanted to like that movie, and it was a rip off of Indiana Jones. But I felt that there was a little more seriousness to the Indiana Jones, even though it had lots of humor.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I just I wanted to like that movie, and it was like it was a May release, and it was a big popcorn movie, and I just felt I was just bored with it.
Oh, how could you be bored?
Hey, Jason, could you have seen anybody except for Brandon Fraser in that movie?
No.
He was perfect.
Jay Bird be like, I'll watch Tom Cruise in it. They tried that, Jay Bird.
Yeah, they tried that.
Okay, so real quick. So speaking of the Mummy,
if you say anything good about that Mummy, I'm
No.
booting you off the call.
No. There was some. I was excited to see the remake of The Mummy with Tom Cruise, because generally I like Tom Cruise movies, and I'm
Generally.
kind of like, oh, maybe this will get me into the whole Mummy thing and whatnot. And I remember going to see that, and I was just like completely fucking bored out of my mind, with the exception of some of the action sequences, which were really good. But otherwise, I was just like, the Brendan Fraser version was actually better.
It was.
And,
It was so.
and
It's so
it had
fun.
your boy Russell Crowe in it too. Like that was like a surefire Jaybird movie right there.
Sure.
Russell Crowe and Tom Cruise, and you can't give us a good movie. Like I felt, that movie.
Okay, so
Well,
I
I don't think the world was ready for a Mummy remake yet.
I like the crashing. The
We're
plane
still
crash
not ready
sequence.
for it.
Yeah.
I like that. I kid you not, I almost bought the Blu-ray out of the Walmart bin for $5 at Walmart, maybe a couple months ago, just because of that scene. I know, like $5, that's pretty cheap, but you know what? I picked it up and I started shopping around. And then in the middle of, I don't know, the soup aisle, I'm just like, no, I am not buying this movie. And I just,
Put it back with the soup. We've all been there.
it was that one and this Halle Berry movie called where the girl gets kidnapped or something like that, which I kind of like. But
911.
It was the 911, yeah.
yeah. I ended up like, I will buy that someday because I actually really did like the movie. But I'm like, okay, don't just buy these to buy these. You buy it when you really want to buy it. You know what I mean? And don't just do it.
I didn't hate that movie.
So
Did Halle Berry have any movies in 1999? Is what I'm curious about now.
Swordfish was what, 2000?
Swordfish was 2000 or 2001.
yeah.
When did the
I think you're
Ball
right.
was 2001.
No, she had a television movie in 1999, but no theatrical releases. The other two that are on the top 10 of 99 that we haven't touched yet are both spy movies. We have the James Bond release from that year, and we have the Austin Powers release from that year.
I enjoyed them both.
The James Bond release was terrible. It's the one that has Christmas Jones in it, which is the absolute stupid.
All right, we'll see, guys.
Pierce
That shit was
Brosnan,
on HBO
unfortunately,
the other night.
Pierce Brosnan unfortunately only did one good James Bond movie, and that really sucks because I still love GoldenEye. I will defend it to this day. I love that movie to death. His next 3 James Bonds were some of the worst James Bonds I've ever seen.
Okay, but Shane, out of those 3 worst James Bond films, what's the best? It's that one. After GoldenEye, it's that one.
Die Another
After
Day and
GoldenEye.
Die Another Day and Tomorrow Never Dies are probably worse than The World Is Not Enough.
Thank you. That's all I needed you to say.
Okay, I will admit to that.
No,
Now-
what did not help the world is not enough was Denise Richards.
It's like being first place in the Special Olympics, but still.
Wow.
Jaybird, your Denise Richards comment?
Yeah, I just said Denise Richards was so horrible
Yep.
in that James Bond movie. And again, I was just watching that on HBO the other night. I was just like, and trust me, I've got it in my James Bond collection, and I would watch the movie. But God, she was so fucking bad in that movie.
How any casting director ever thought we would believe that she was a nuclear physicist?
It was
Or
her
you-
looks, and she was hot off of Starship Troopers, man.
I don't know. Give me Michelle Yeoh or somebody. Like, if you want an older hot woman, like, just give me somebody that I believe actually knows anything
Well,
about.
she came in Tomorrow Never Dies.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Austin
What about
Powers
Tom-
2. I
Yeah.
remember watching. I saw a trade screening at Eastgate, like 1 or 2 weeks before. No, it might have been a full month before it opened because it was definitely a work print because the colors weren't right on it. And I got to tell you, that's one of my favorite comedies that I've ever watched because of how much laughter. I think of everybody who was at the trade screening, I think I knew like 80% of the people that were in that auditorium, and we were all rolling during that film, and it was so worth watching. It was so
I
good.
couldn't believe how huge it was. I mean,
Sure.
that movie, we knew it was going to do better than the first one because it developed a cult following, but did not know it was going to be this huge monster of, huge.
Sure.
That movie is fucking huge.
And I have to say, it is one of the movies where I love it more than its original. Like, I don't dislike the first one. I thought the first one was fine, but I don't know if it was because it had Heather Graham in it. I don't know if it's because I got more of the jokes in it. I don't know if it was because I was 19 and that's what I really wanted to watch on screen. But like, when I watched The Spy Who Shagged Me, like, I fell in love with it. Like I said, I'd seen the first one and I was just like, okay, Austin Powers is funny. It's a James Bond ripoff, whatever. But like, that second
Yeah.
solidified that character for me.
Well, they took everything that was good about the first one, the things that made the first one even become a cult following, and they made it better with this one. Like, I agree with you. Like, the second Austin Powers was way better than the first one. Funnier. I'm not going to say better. It was funnier.
Is
I
the
laughed
Spy Who
more.
Shagged Me, is that Fat Bastard?
Yes,
Yeah,
they
it's the first
introduced
time I
that
saw
bastard
it,
there.
yeah.
But he's a much smaller role than they ended up bringing him in Goldmember, which I absolutely hate. So that sucks.
Yeah.
But I think the third one is garbage. But I really love the second Austin Powers movie.
How did we not talk about Varsity Blues or 10 Things I Hate About You tonight?
Dude, we haven't touched very many of the teen
She's
comedies.
All That, Cruel Intentions.
You could do this for a week about 99 movies.
January of 1999 was great for Paul Walker because he got to be two douchebags in one month. He got to be Lance Ferber, and he got to be the guy in She's All That that's just complete trash.
So Jay Bird and I went to AMC last year with some other friends and saw Cruel Intentions on the big screen for the 20th
that a
anniversary.
baby?
Huh?
Was that a
Yes,
baby?
that was. Yes,
Where?
that was.
Let me see.
A baby not born in 1999.
No, who's got a baby?
Chris has a baby. Chris had a baby
I see.
right when the pandemic started.
Hey, nice. Oh,
Yep.
just a baby.
She's also named after a Shrek character.
Fiona?
Yeah.
Oh, good guess, Jason.
But
Fiona,
so, yeah,
Fiona,
I hope it
welcome to the
wasn't Donkey.
podcast.
I wanted to ask
Well,
you
except
guys.
for Dad's.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, except for Dad's the ogre.
You guys haven't brought up controversy in
Okay.
1999, and I
Ooh.
feel like one of the most controversy films was Eyes Wide Shut.
that movie sucked.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, bad.
Wasn't that
Oh.
Kubrick's last one?
Yes, it was Kubrick's
Yes.
last film that he died while making, and Spielberg had to complete the movie. Supposedly, Spielberg changed a lot of things.
I thought that was AI.
Oh, you may be right. I think you're right
I
about
want to
that.
say he
It is
shot.
AI. It is
Yeah,
AI.
yeah, yeah.
Shot all
Yep.
of Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah.
But
Eyes Wide
died
Shut for
before it
me
got
was
released.
it's one of those movies where like I don't own it, but if it's ever on cable, I somehow or another stop and I'm sucked in, and I find it very frightening, fascinating, and just something like I've never fucking seen before.
Well, and what's interesting is there are multiple movies that I have not revisited since the movie theater, and Eyes Wide Shut would be one of them, along with American Beauty. So I don't know if life being different for me now and if I watch those movies now, going back and watch them now, while the way that everything is going with, just being an adult and having kids and everything, like if that would completely change my understanding and how the film interacts with me on a personal level. So like now I'm sitting here going, maybe I should watch those again. But if I don't really like something, I turn it off the first 20 minutes.
That's true.
It might be worth watching. Might be worth watching it 20 minutes to see if I
But
like
can
it.
someone tell me, like, really, what was there's something about it. I don't know if it's my mind playing with me, but because, like The Shining was such a cult hit and people admire it and love it, the Stanley Kubrick's work and such. And he has that tone in his movies where it's him,
Mm-hmm.
it's his stamp on it. And there was such a creepiness factor and such a throwback. Like Eyes Wide Shut was in a current time, but it seemed like it was a much older time period. But it wasn't. But there's something fascinating about that movie, but I still don't know what the point of that movie was. Is it like fucking rich people do crazy sex shit? I mean,
Okay, real quick, because I realized that I thought that I was correct. Stanley Kubrick died 4 days after presenting his final cut to Warner Brothers of Eyes Wide Shut. So it wasn't AI. This was his last movie he ever made. He died before the actual final cut was ever made. I believe it was Steven Spielberg that did the recut of it.
I think so.
And did all the extra shooting or whatnot, but this was Stanley Kubrick's last film, and he died 4 days after he turned in his cut to Warner Brothers. And I know that a lot of the controversy about it was going to be NC-17, the cut that he turned in, because there was a lot of full frontal nudity, a lot of sex stuff that was on screen, and they ended up skirting that by putting on shadows and things and over those
areas.
Yeah, in the movie.
But what was that movie? What was the premise of that movie?
It literally was just the rabbit hole of Tom Cruise going down, trying to understand this subculture society that he heard about. I don't remember I haven't watched it. Well, I guess I watched it last year, but whatever. I don't really remember it that well. It really was him. So he's in the sex shop at one point because somebody recommended him going to the sex shop, and that's when he sees Lily Sobieski and becomes obsessed with her, and then starts investigating her and like what her job is, and finds out that she works at these like underground masked sex club event things. And so he tries to find a way to get involved with those because he's obsessed with her character and trying to understand her lifestyle. I agreed last year when I rewatched it. I still didn't really understand the point of it, but I tried to read a lot of stuff as I was watching it to see like what people were claiming was the point of it. I just remember being very blah about it when I rewatched it. But if you want to talk about controversy in 1999, I got to bring up Kevin Smith's Dogma. That got him
greatest satire ever.
Great satire movie. How people were boycotting it and how the Catholic Church was reacting months before the movie was ever actually in theaters for people to the Buddy Christ.
That was awesome.
Like, I would say that might have had to be the biggest controversy of 99.
Did you like it, Jason?
I honestly don't think I've watched it since the theater. I own it, but I haven't popped it in since.
Is that the one where Linus Morris plays God?
Morris plays God at the very last scene.
Okay.
I remember us watching the movie and me going, this is a pro-God movie.
Oh, yeah.
Not an anti-God movie.
Yep.
So, like Shane said, it was one of those moments where you're going, why did you guys... It's rushing to judgment before you know what's going on. Like, and it's just like, oh, we're going to condemn this movie even though we have no idea what it's about. We've never watched it.
I just wanted, in the midst of watching that movie, I'm just like, Kevin Smith, I'm sorry, but I just want to pitch in your ass and fucking in the comedies of in the convenience stores in the neighborhood and whatnot. Don't get into all this shit.
Okay.
Yeah, the idolatry and everything. I can get that.
I'm like, come on, man, go back to snowballing or something. You know?
If you listen to a lot of his talks about Dogma and even the talks about him protesting his own movie just to have fun with it, one of the things was he was going through a lot of crisis of faith in his own life at that time. So Dogma was actually the first movie he ever wrote before he went to film school. He went to film school. They ended up doing Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, and then he was like, oh, I've got this very first script that I wrote before Clerks. Let me go back and look at this again because I'm really questioning my faith again. And he did it more as a cathartic thing for himself to just address, this is kind of how I feel about church and religion and things like that, but I want to put a funny spin on it because that's who I am.
I get that. It's just one of those things, and I respect that. It's just kind of, and trust me, I am no religious person by any means whatsoever, and it wasn't like I was offended or anything like that. I was just bored. That's all.
Okay. And that's understandable. It definitely has a lot of bizarre subplots that don't really even make sense or need to be there. Like, it could have been a much tighter and better movie, without a
Poop
doubt.
monster alone.
Sure.
I should have liked it because I don't make sense, so I should have liked it.
Well,
Come on, that cast, though.
What was that?
That cast was brilliant.
Oh, the cast was
yeah.
great.
Oh yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
but the movie itself was phenomenal. I mean, I grew up raised Irish, devout Irish Catholic. I'm no longer. I'm a born again Christian. But that being said, that movie came out when I was, it was like for the most of us except Galligan, coming of age. He was still, couldn't drive. But sorry, but I mean, it really was. It was a complete satire of Catholicism. Kevin Smith himself was raised Catholic, and it was a very looking at it as at the time of practicing Catholic. It was satire. It was lighthearted, but in no way was it meant to be a definitive rebuke of faith or faith in general. No matter what you believe in. It's just finding the humor in organized religion to him, and it translated well.
Let's address our two not comedy Catholic movies that came out in the fourth quarter of this year, which are Stigmata and End of Days.
End of Days, man. Like, I'm a hardcore, grew up, every movie was an Arnold movie pretty much in my household in the 80s, man. Like, if it wasn't Total Recall, it was Terminator. If it wasn't Terminator, it was Red Heat, Commando, all of them, man. Like
Predator.
Oh, Predator, yeah. Like, I mean, like, Conan, both of them. Even the second one, the crappy version, second movie that they made.
Raw Deal.
What?
Raw Deal.
Raw Deal, man. Like, yeah, there's so many that were so, like, even when you see a bad Arnold Schwarzenegger movie from the 80s,
you'll love it.
You still love it. But then, like, this, along with The Sixth Day, along with Collateral Damage, all these movies that he did just were crap. The only one I liked around that time was Eraser. Like,
that was 3 years earlier.
I kind of liked Collateral Damage a little bit.
Oh, dude, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just like me growing older and wanting more out of my films and expecting more out of movies when I was older compared to younger. But like End of Days, I thought was really messed up. And although the whole movie is not very good at all, I can't fault Arnold Schwarzenegger in that movie because his acting, it feels like he was actually acting on a higher level than everybody else was in that film. And everybody else kind of just was like phoning it in, where he was actually trying to hit that next level. And I really enjoy the ending and the self-sacrifice at the end. Like, I thought that was like the redemptive part for that entire movie for me, was because I wasn't expecting it. I expected him to find a way to just beat the devil and be able to survive and everything. So
real quick, can I bring up what I find funny about these two movies is when Stigmata was released, we had Gabriel Byrne playing a priest, and then End of Days was released, and we had Gabriel Byrne playing the devil. I just always find that
Stigmata was fucked up.
Stigmata was ridiculous.
I just remember sitting there and watching that movie, and there was one point I just had to get up and go to the bathroom because I'm like, I'm gonna fucking turn into Linda Blair here in a second. You know what I mean? Like, it just was just it was that and like Stir of Echoes were just
Stir of Echoes is so good.
Disturbing.
Yeah.
That was 99 also, I believe. Stir of Echoes was 99. Stir of Echoes is so good. And it's so good because like it's a mystery, but it also taps into like supernatural elements.
Wouldn't Stir Echoes trying to be like a Sixth Sense ripoff a little bit?
It
In
came
a
out
way,
around the same time.
The problem was it came around to, if you watch it now, you will not see it as a Sixth Sense ripoff. The problem was they came out like a month or two apart. Like Stir of Echoes is very like Kevin Bacon gets hypnotized and starts seeing visions of a murdered girl, but he knows that she's murdered, so he tries to start solving her murder. It wasn't like I see dead people and I don't know I'm seeing dead people. It was he knows she's dead and he becomes obsessed with solving her murder. And last year when I rewatched it, I still loved it. I thought it's very like you have to let go of some suspension of disbelief. Like there's some things in it that are kind of kooky, but like it's a science fiction mystery movie that I really enjoy.
David Coep, was that him?
I think so. That's not the right movie.
Like I tell my kids, the amount of useless information that sticks in my head for things that'll never make me money.
Yep. Written and directed by David Cope. Yep.
Okay.
What you guys think of The Insider?
I was bored.
Was that the smoking one?
Yes, Russell Crowe and Al Pacino. I was bored, but I respect their acting in that movie. I thought they both did well.
I like the quiet intensity.
Who was that? Who? Somebody, an action director directed that, didn't they?
Michael Mann.
Michael Mann. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The quiet intensity to be put in that position where basically you're going against the tobacco company, and the threats and the big business of that, and basically you've got this guy who is narking basically.
Mm-hmm.
And just it was kind of a quiet, intense, stressed movie, if that makes sense. Like it made you think, like if you were working for a company and put in that position, like what would you do?
Sure.
And then the threats that you're up against, and of an industry like that. I liked it in a boring, quiet kind of way.
For sure.
Weird, because Michael Mann is definitely a hit or miss director for me.
I'll agree with that.
I either really enjoy his movie or I am bored to tears and I don't want to ever watch it again.
Yeah.
I really enjoy I haven't seen Last of the Mohicans in a very long time, but I like that. Yep. Heat, I think, is a very overrated movie personally.
I love Heat.
Whereas I loved Ali. I really enjoyed Collateral until the end of that movie.
Yeah.
Miami Vice was crap.
Yep.
And Public Enemies was like really well done, but super long. Like that one could have been major cut down. So
sure.
I still think the scene with Val Kilmer and Ashley Judd, where she tells him basically to go away and she didn't say anything to him because the cops are there.
Yeah.
And Heat is genius.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So intense, but quiet.
Yeah. So we've already passed the hour mark. So the last thing that I would like for us to wrap up with, because it was age appropriate for me and most everybody else on this call is going back to the teen movies. We've addressed American Pie a lot, but we've got movies like 10 Things I Hate About You, where we had Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Heath Ledger, Julia Stiles, the guy who ended up being Mr. Universe in Serenity, David, somebody on Kramer, maybe? I can't remember his last name. David Krumholtz. We just had that has an amazing cast. I got a movie like Go, like the beginning of Timothy Olyphant, Katie Holmes, Taye Diggs, Breckin Meyer. Like you had basically everybody from Can't Hardly Wait in this movie, and like Dawson's Creek. Like Go put together an amazing cast. She's All That and Varsity Blues that we've addressed briefly. Like those both had great casts. Those are teen movies that to this day I can put on, love them, watch them. They were age appropriate for me. Obviously, we mentioned Cruel Intentions earlier. Stuff like Idle Hands with Seth Green and Devon Sawa, who went on to do Final Destination the next year.
Man, that's some throwback movies right there.
Yeah, those are like those
Idle Hands. Whoa,
that made me as a 19-year-old teenage male working at the movie theater. Like I saw myself in all of these, and as I said at the top of this, like I have a a very emotional connection to this movie because it was the first year I worked at a movie theater. Like I said, Jason was my boss. Jason Richardson was my boss. Jason Maier was my friend, like all through high school. Like I hit 1999 as a fresh movie theater employee, and I embraced a lot of these movies, especially the teenage ones that came out at that time. What movies around this time are ones that like you feel helped create, like they stick with you today and help create who you are?
Notting Hill.
Notting Hill, really?
I'm a hopeless romantic. I like romantic movies.
Sure.
I am the guy that's made fun of because I like the You've Got Mails, the Sleepless in Seattles. I like romantic type comedy movies where you kind of just jump in and get to know the characters and their crazy family members and shit like that.
Jaybird, may I ask you a personal question right now?
Yeah.
What year did you come out?
2001.
Okay, so in 99, in 99, in 99, did you see romantic comedies any differently, or did that not matter to you?
I still see them the same as today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a love story is a love story to you, and that it just doesn't matter.
Correct.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Jason? Maier?
Oof. Movies that stick with me from that year, huh?
Yeah. Like ones that you feel like helped at that time, at 19-year-old Jason. What would 19-year-old Jason and almost 40-year-old Jason agree are movies that have stuck with you on an emotional level?
As silly as it sounds, Varsity Blues is on that list for me.
Sure.
Tweeter
does what Tweeter does.
I think it's a pig. No, but
Sixth Sense.
Okay.
Dude, Office Space came out that year.
Office Space was that year, yes.
Oh my gosh! So I mean, like, I can't imagine.
If you start going down the list, you're gonna see a lot of movies that you're gonna be like, I can't believe we didn't talk about this one.
Well,
I looked at pretty much all the releases for 99, and I wrote down ones that just kind of stuck out with me. But I have a theme here in that, like earlier, and don't get me wrong, I love Fight Club. I love Sixth Sense. I love American Beauty. I love American Pie. But when it comes down to like, if I could only have like 2 of these movies,
mm-hmm.
and I'd be stuck in a room for like 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Never Been Kissed would be the first one.
Nice.
And I probably would pick Notting Hill secondly, just
There's
because I could watch them over and over.
And enjoy them every single time.
Yeah, and it's kind of the same thing if they're romantic comedies.
Yep. Jason, what are you shaking your head about?
I'm sorry, I just came across Entrapment, and it's like the last good movie that Sean Connery ever made. Like,
yeah,
like acceptable movie he ever made. Let me put it that way. I won't say it's a good movie. I just remember Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Sure.
Cat move underneath the lasers. I mean, that's edged in this brain for all of time. If we're going the same route as like Jay Bird was just talking about, where it's like pick 2 or 3 movies that you're talking about, I might have to bump off Varsity Blues.
Okay.
The Matrix would definitely be in that list for me. I'm trying to think of what else would be on that list for sure. Tarzan's probably on that list. And then I'm gonna pick 3 instead of 2, just for the simple fact that like I would need the different movies to go up and down with.
Sure.
And it's 10 Things I Hate About You. Like
so much fun.
That movie's so solid,
good movie.
Beginning to end. No matter what mood I'm in.
Sure.
Like, that's another one. TV is on. It's on no matter what.
You've got 2 great love stories that play out like at the same time but separate, and it's so fun to watch.
And I still don't like Bianca, even though I think she's adorable, and I totally understand why you be with her. Like, I'm just like, no, like, go with Gabrielle Union instead. Like, go with her instead.
Oh man, I mean, it's no secret that I'm in love with Julia Stiles. So since 1999 wished I was Heath Ledger in many ways.
It's really funny because it's one of those moments where if you're picking two or three and you're pushing everything aside, you're just like, but that one over there. And that one.
What about the other guys
too? I don't. But yeah.
What about what?
What about the other guys? And
Andy,
they're
give me a couple movies from '99 that have stuck with you that 14-year-old Andy and current day Andy agree are important to you.
Elmo and Grouchland. I'm just kidding. No, I'm trying to think of movies that we haven't talked about because one is The Mummy. I'm not going to lie to you.
Sure.
Little me wanted to be the action adventure star as Big
Rick
Me still
O'Connell?
does. But one we haven't talked about that I still love to this day and will always watch and always love, especially now that I'm a parent, is Big Daddy. Love
for
Adam
sure. Oh,
Sandler.
how did we not get to Big Daddy? Yes, that is my all-time favorite Adam Sandler movie. Like, Big Daddy is so much fun.
Yeah, love it to this day, and it stuck with me for different reasons then than it does now. But, classic.
Oh yeah, you are 100% right. I cannot believe I didn't bring that up earlier. Big
That's all right,
Daddy
dude. Like you said, you could go down this
phenomenal.
list and pinpoint 1,000 movies that we haven't talked about. So.
Sure. Do you have a third one?
Oh, geez. I don't know. Ones that we haven't talked about, I enjoyed Bicentennial Man. I thought that was a good kind of, I'm a huge Robin Williams fan.
Sure.
So prior to this, I was actually looking like, what did he make in 1999?
Nice.
I was like, he was in Bicentennial Man. I haven't seen it for a while. But again, probably one of those that I would look back and enjoy for different reasons.
Sure.
Than I did when I first watched it. But yeah, and then Office Space.
Office Space is so good. All right, Wardo, you had time. Give us a couple of movies from '99 that I feel like you're like a couple years younger than you've been, like 17 then maybe.
I was 18.
18. Okay, so 18-year-old Chris and current day Chris, give me some movies from this time that you both agree on.
Fight Club.
Okay.
It's just one of those movies that stands the test of time. I know I might get probably yelled at by one of you, but I would say The Phantom Menace because it is the first chapter in the story of how Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader and how the seeds were sown.
You say doo-doo this time.
Of the 1, 2, 3 trilogy, I think it's the best one. I will always.
That's saying it's a polished turd.
I will always say that it has the best lightsaber duel of any Star Wars movie, all 9 of them combined.
Fact.
There are some animated fight scenes that give it a run for its money, but as far as actual live action fight scenes, that Duel of Fates is the best ever put on film.
Best sword fight ever. Forget lightsaber; it's just sword fight. Period.
Yeah, just best fencing duel.
It is so good and so emotional and so, like, just from the minute that hangar bay door opens and Obi-Wan says, "We got this," like
what was the beef with Phantom Menace that people had then?
Jar Jar, man.
Jar Jar ruined it.
Jar Jar may have been a bigger controversy than Dogma.
Well, everybody hated Jar Jar, and everybody really disliked having such a young Anakin that was acting like so carefree. Because I remember everybody making fun of the yippee moment in the movie. Like that and Jar Jar Binks, everybody hated. I won't say everybody. But yeah, like I'm sitting there. I was 18 when that movie came out. I absolutely loved it. I saw that movie 13 times in the movie theater. I paid for probably like 9 of those.
Because what was it? In the first 48 hours, you saw it 6 times.
I saw the employee
screening.
I saw it at midnight, 3 a.m., 6 a.m.
Yep.
And then I saw it again. It was like in the first 48 hours, I'd seen it 5 times.
5 times? Yeah.
So, yeah, because I saw it again at like 11 o'clock the next night.
My God.
Dude,
it's a fetish.
Yeah.
Well, and I've told Shane this before. The first movie I can ever remember seeing in a movie theater was Return of the Jedi. I remember the lightsaber fight. That was the first thing I can remember being in a movie theater and seeing. And I mean, like, probably A New Hope is probably still my favorite movie of all time. I don't even think it's the best Star Wars movie, but I love it the most out of all the Star Wars movies. But yeah, like that original trilogy, like literally defined growing up, as
Sure.
it did most of the people my age.
Oh yeah.
Well,
So-
I'll put it this way, boys, because I know I'm the oldest one in this group here. By the way, in 1999, I was 25 years old. Speaking of the Star Wars, the originals, I can remember being as a kid going to see the originals in the theaters. Like I went to the Eastwood Theater on Pendleton Pike to watch it in the 70 millimeter. So I would have been, 1977, I was 4 years old and remembering Star Wars.
That's
Is that
awesome.
the first movie you remember?
No, the first movie I remember was a Sean Connery Disney film called Darby O'Gill and the Little People,
We Little People, okay.
and watched it at the Castleton Arts. It would have been, before Arts.
Yeah, 4, 5,
Back in
6.
the 70s, 80s, in the parking lot. But Darby O'Gill and the Little People and John Carpenter's Halloween were my first two movies
Nice.
in the theater.
That you can remember.
Yes.
Okay. Because like my son's first movie was Kick-Ass, but he was like 3 weeks old. So
Father
like,
of the Year.
my wife brought him.
Mother
So-
of
And
the
I
Year.
saw Halloween at the Glendale 1 through 3 theater.
It's probably only a Glendale 1, 2 at that point.
It was no, they had 3, and it was in Cinema 2.
Because they cut that first theater in half.
In half, yeah.
Dude,
And,
can you imagine 500? What was that? Like that one was like 700 seats. 1 and 2 originally were like 700 apiece, and then they cut one of them to make 350, and the 700 seater still. Like, dude, I miss being able to. The last time, sorry to hijack that.
Oh,
The last time I remember a movie that I paid to see, or whether I paid to see it or whatever, sold out auditorium was The Dark Knight.
Okay.
Like that's the last time I went to a sold out show because I watch everything before it opens.
Mhm.
But that, like, dude, I love being there. It was opening weekend. I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday night. And sitting there in a sold out auditorium, literally have to sit next to my wife and some stranger I don't know. And I loved every minute of it. Everybody was quiet. Everybody was on pins and needles throughout the whole movie because it was so freaking good. And I miss that. And I hope, and I know Shane and I have debated about this stuff, but like, I really hope that more people realize how important it is to sit in a movie theater with that kind of thing. Because like,
Yeah.
I hate, like, I enjoy that I get to see the movies early, but I really hate the fact that I don't get to like witness crowd reaction on a bigger level. Because there's things that, like when Shane and I watch movies together, that we'll laugh at, but we're like chuckling. But
Sure.
I've been to movies where somebody's laughing like I am stupidly at something really silly,
Mhm.
and then it makes it even funnier. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I just
Well,
miss that stuff.
I was just telling someone the other day, actually not the other day, I'd say within the last few months, I've kind of went through a struggle. I'm kind of going through this. I'm better now, but a few months ago, I was kind of going through a little slight midlife crisis. And to make a long story short, things are evolving each day and things are changing, and right in front of us. And I'm a Gen Xer. I was born in 1973, and I've in my time that I've been here have seen things evolve and change. Some things better than others, but I was going through this thing a couple months ago where I kind of felt like the novelty has worn off on a lot of things. And kind of as Jason was saying, like, back in the day, like in the, late 70s, early 80s, even though I was a kid, go back to the 80s, you stood in line at the movies. Movies would sell out, which then created hype, demand. So then you'd buy tickets for the next show in 2 hours, and then you go fool around and go and do something stupid for 2 hours somewhere. Now we have like our fingertips on everything. We get information ahead of time, and there's no surprise of anything. There's no anticipation of buildup, you know what I mean, anymore. And going to the movies in the 80s is not like going to the movies today.
Nope.
And I'm so glad that I was fortunate to have experienced that kid in the movie theater watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, watching Star Wars, watching John Carpenter's Halloween, although it scared the shit out of me. It's just so different now. And so, everything is put out there now. There's no surprise of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And, even like with music, you can just get the snap of a finger, right? You know how you used to listen to the radio for your favorite song and that anticipation build up?
And then hit the record.
Play record.
Yes.
Oh, man, I missed the beginning of it.
I mean, and
That's
going
just-
back.
Or somebody spoke over it, you beat the crap out
I feel
of
like
them.
we've lost
Yep.
that. We have lost that, and going to the movies now, we're fucking reclining back like we're at home at a fucking movie theater. You know what I mean? And
And you got to think, 1999 was like right at the dawn of the internet. Imagine if The Sixth Sense was released today.
yeah,
Like your Facebook timeline friends would spoil that for you on Friday night.
I would really hope not. I mean, people were really cool about Game of Thrones for the most part.
Not my friends.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Endgame.
Yeah.
Endgame people were cool
Yeah,
about.
and
Endgame people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's because the Russos basically said if your movie gets spoiled, you have the right to beat the crap out of whoever tells you.
And I think, but like that's kind of cool, like that they went to that extreme to go ahead and release that as a statement. Because like I don't know, man. Like I agree with you, Jay Bird. Like it's one of those things that like my kids will never know that.
Yep.
And what's crazy now is still working at a movie theater and Black Panther weekend, right? One of our busiest weekends we've had. One of the busiest weekends I think movie theaters have had in the last 10 years, easy. It was just absolutely crazy. It was bigger than the Avenger movies, at least at our theater.
Yep.
And it was just nuts. But what I found really interesting was people were coming in trying to buy tickets. We tell them we were sold out, but offer to sell them like the next showing, which we were on 3 or 4 screens at that point. So they were waiting like an hour, maybe. And they would be like, no, we're good. And then they'd leave. Like they were going to go to a different movie theater and be able to go in immediately instead of just buying that ticket and just waiting around for like that hour or whatever.
yeah.
It's insane to think of the way that the mentality that people have nowadays where they're just like, oh, like I can totally just go over there and it'll be right where I want it to be immediately.
No, we back in the day in the 80s, you go see E.T. Oh, it's sold out. Okay, it's not for another. Okay, we'll get tickets for the 4:00 show. Okay, we'll go run to the mall and hang out at the time. And
I was gonna say, and then you had Castleton Square.
Yeah.
Where, like you'd sell something
to
out,
Farrell's.
and then you go buy the ticket, and then you just walk right down, go play at the arcade for a couple of hours or whatever, and then
People will
walk
have
around
no
and window
idea.
shop.
People will have no idea what an incredible experience it was to be part of that time period of going to see E.T. and Poltergeist and Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Goonies in the theaters at that time during that period where all you had was like at the concession stand was popcorn, a drink, and a couple candies, and that was it. That's it.
Now we've got popcorn, shrimp, chicken tenders, mozzarella sticks, funnel cake fries.
Way too many food options now.
Yeah.
But
I didn't mean to take away
the
time from you
masses
guys.
want,
But sorry
too.
about that.
oh, you're good. I'm looking at your ceiling now.
What? Sorry, I'm trying to get my plug thing. What about your other friends here? What do they think of? I mean, because I don't know their ages, so.
Andy?
Yeah, sorry, I fell off there. We're still talking about experiences in the movie theater.
Experiences in a movie theater, yeah.
Yeah.
Like then compared to now.
Yeah, so I was born in '86, 34 years old. My earliest memories of the movie theater were Lion King and oh geez,
Old.
yeah, obviously different, and just from how about this? I'll go back to my day. So I started working in a movie theater in 2002, General Cinema Eastgate, and yeah, we had popcorn and I think the slushy
Nachos.
machine. Nachos.
You were
We-
Eastgate?
He worked at
Yeah.
Eastgate. We just learned this at the beginning of the call.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I left Eastgate in '94,
I
Oh,
left
okay.
it in 2000.
and that's where I
and then went
started.
back.
So who was the managers there?
Donita, John, Purdy, and I think Donna. There was a Donna something.
It was
Yeah,
Donna from
okay.
Greenwood.
Damn it, A. Jones, Tamita.
Were you there when Tamita got canned and they brought over
Mm.
Devin?
No,
Okay.
I think I'd already left there. And then so I have those memories, and look like taking like I took a hiatus from movie theater. I really hadn't gone to one for a while until my kids were born. They're 6, 4, and 2 now. So just going back and seeing, like you said, like the chicken tenders and the pizza and like that to me bothers me the most. And walking into a movie theater and seeing the recliners and seeing that, I mean, it looks like they took out 3/4 of the seats to make room for these recliners, and I'm like,
Yep.
what? And then I lean back on one. I'm like, okay, this is nice, but it's still like I remember walking in there and being like, where's all the seats? Like where's I don't understand that, but I can't say I've ever actually seen a sold out movie. I'm sure I have. I don't know. I love movies. It just was never my thing to go to a movie theater, I guess.
Gotcha.
Maybe because since I worked in one, I was jaded, but
No, I feel you on that.
I can't even. Yeah.
I won't go if it's a crowd of people. I watch everything in small, intimate settings without people.
Well, and it's like even talking about the movies that we were talking about now in 1999. Like, so I have an older brother who's 2 years older than me. The movies that we talked about, I watched VHS movies that were in his collection that I
nice.
That I was like, oh, I want to watch this. And like, oh, that's amazing. And like, I grew up with like, I don't think I've seen any of these movies we've talked about in theater. I think Big Daddy I saw in theaters. Yeah, like, I guess it just shows how young I am. Phantom Menace I saw in theaters.
Nice.
And I really like that one.
That was a good experience in the theater.
It's definitely changed though, and I feel like it's a recent change. Like it's not, it hasn't been like I would say in the last 5 to 10 years is when it really, really all changed.
Oh yeah.
I'd say last 5.
Yep.
5 to 6.
Yeah. So I don't know if it, and the movies haven't gotten any cheaper. I guess more expensive than anything.
Not at all.
What is it? A brand new a seat up at an AMC if it's a specialty theater, which is one of their IMAX or like their Dolby or whatever. It's almost $20 a seat
per person.
Like that's insane. Whereas like the regular ticket's like $11.50 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is the last thing I'll say about it, and then I probably got to get off of here. But
yeah, we'll probably wrap it up after whatever you say.
This COVID thing. So my girls have really been wanting to watch this Trolls 2 movie that now you can rent for $20.
Yep.
And I told them no. I was like, there's no, because you don't get the experience. Like I told them, they're like, it's still $20, which is ridiculous. But like we don't have surround sound. We don't have.
Sure, but at the same time, if you took your kids to see that movie in theater, just you and 3 kids, you're looking at $40 in tickets already.
Right,
so
but
half of that to watch it at home.
He's paying for the experience to go out.
Exactly. Thank you, Jason. And that's I guess that's the point that I'm trying to make is movie theater, even though it's changed, is still an experience. It's still an event, and sitting at home watching it on your TV just doesn't do it.
And I feel like what we've talked about for about the last 5 minutes is probably a good topic for a future episode, because I feel like we could do a lot of comparisons about old school theaters, get a bunch of other theater workers that we've had, get them on here for one. I will say that I have my next 2 episodes planned out. Episode 2 is going to be called Sequels. We are going to talk about sequels and whether we think they are better than their originals or not. And the 3rd episode is going to be called Trilogies. And we are going to talk about trilogies as a whole, where all 3 of the movies are taken into account. So obviously The Matrix is going to drop off of anybody's list really quickly. But so we are going to do sequels, and then trilogies will be episode 3. And maybe by episode 4, if this COVID stuff is still going on, we will do another episode about movie theater changes, and we'll see the state of movie theaters at that point. But
I wonder if after this COVID thing, I really wonder if the Zoom thing will continue, because I, for some reason, feel like it may.
I think you're right. And if this is what I need to do to get podcasts with you guys, so that it's not like, hey, what night can all of you guys come over to my house and we can record this together? It's what night can we all be on a Zoom call for an hour together? And I apologize that we went quite a bit over the hour tonight. But I thought we had a great conversation, and I loved everything that we talked about. But this is so much easier to get people together to have conversations like this. You're all in the comfort of your own home, and you can drink or not drink, or you can, have something on in the background or not, or you can deal with your kids like Ward had to tonight. If you're listening and not watching, Ward had to cut out a couple of minutes ago. He was definitely on daddy duty during the call. But I think Zoom will continue for the most part, especially I do a Zoom call on Tuesday, and I have friends that are all over the United States that are on that call. So I don't know if it'll be a weekly thing with them in the future like it is right now, but I think Zoom's probably going to stick around, because I'd never heard of it before all of this started.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you guys go. But before I do, one movie you forgot to mention or no one brought up, Election.
I mentioned it in my first 35, but we did never go back and talk about that. I have a lot of fond memories of that movie. I think it's
Crazy
a lot
Flick.
of fun.
Crazy
Yep, Flick. Vote for Flick.
Anyways,
I want to thank
pleasure,
you guys. Thank you guys for talking movies with me. I've wanted to do something like this for a long time, just because I absolutely love talking movies. Jason, I've talked movies with you guys for 20 years. Jason Maier longer than that. Andy, I know we talked a lot of movies over beers at the Fox and the Hound. I'm so happy to see you. I know we don't see each other very often anymore, but thank you for responding to my call out. It was a great catching up with you and since you're a couple years younger, getting your perspective on things that year. Like, I had a lot of fun tonight, and thank you guys so much for being a part of it. Next week, I'll throw up a thing and see who's interested in talking about sequels.
All right.
Is it same time next week?
Probably same time next week.
All right, man.
All right. Hey, have a good night, guys. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to everybody later.
See you
All
guys.
right, bye.